Oh, oh man. Oh boy. Open the garage door.
What you got going on there, Jimmy?
Oh man, I don't know what happened. I'm glad you made it over today.
I don't see anything at all.
You know, one of them damn LiFePOs done had it, you know what I mean? No fire though.
No fire.
No fire.
No fire, just smoke.
Just smoking, baby.
All right, obviously that was a reenactment and was not real. All right, anyway, so today's video, we are actually gonna go out to the guy's house of where I got this battery. This is the battery I did a little video on a few weeks ago, and why I'm gonna put an exhaust system on my own battery system over there. Anyway, I asked the guy, his name is Jimmy, if he wouldn't mind telling us his story or his experience of what he remembers of what happened that day whenever this cell released his magic smoke. So that's basically what we're gonna do. I'm gonna run out to his house. He's gonna share his experience. So if you guys wanna hear that, that's what we're gonna do. All right, let's get to it. All right, so we're out here at Jimmy's house and we're just gonna ask him a couple of questions, basically what he remembers, and then we'll probably have him maybe explain his system to us. All right, so, you know, this obviously is a few months later. What do you remember, or can you at least try to explain what happened and what you remember?
Okay, so yeah, I'm Jimmy. I am the husband from the other video. Here's what I remember. I was at work, got a call from my wife, there's smoke in the garage. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, it's a lot of smoke. I just picked up the kids. And I says, well, open the garage door. I was like not concerned really because I didn't know what it was. What I thought it was probably one of my tool batteries or something, you know, had smoked. Then she calls and said, there's a lot, and she's freaking out a little bit. And I said, well, if you're that nervous, then call the fire department, which I wasn't too keen on. And she really did call the fire department, so it must have been serious. So I sped home. It took me about 30 minutes to get home because I live about 30 minutes from work. I had her put the fire department on the phone because they had told her they were to get everybody out of the house. Something inside of a cabinet, one of these, which was a cell, was hot, and it was like 200 and some degrees, and they were afraid it was going to explode and ignite and catch on fire. They were also unaware at the time that they were LiFePO4 batteries. They wanted to get people here in hazmat equipment to start tearing them out and putting them in the driveway. And I said, don't do that. They are not lead acid, because they were worried about, I think he said phosphorus. I don't remember the chemicals they were worried about. I said, you're going to make things worse. You might start a fire if you start, unless you know how to do that. Do you know how to dismantle batteries? And he did not. The chief did not. Said, please let me come there, and I'll be there shortly.
I'm going to interject real quick. So in your system here, everything is labeled up to code. There, you got shutoffs everywhere for everything. All of this was still on at the moment when the fire
Yeah,
chief
it was
was
still.
here?
Actually, they disconnected everything.
Oh, okay, okay.
They did disconnect everything. They did not know what a Anderson disconnect. I said to the guy, pull the Anderson disconnect, and he said, what is that? I just figured that was a term like firefighters would know, but they didn't. So I explained to him what it was, and he was able to do that. But they had already went outside. I have disconnects on the outside of my home for all my solar panels. And the AC connection, because I also have a grid-tied system. So they shut all that down, and basically they'd shut the power down to the house by the time I got home.
Okay.
And then when I got here, now you've asked me, and here's what I think I remember, because I was probably a little shook up. I had spent a lot of money on these cells. I did not want my wife to think I was a fool. You know, my neighbors were all outside because there was smoke billowing out of my garage, and there was fire trucks. And yeah, so, you know, I was a little shook up. You know, like, what in the hell? What I remember is I think the smoke was really low. I think it was like I was walking through it and it was at my knees. And the cabinet was super hot, and he had said, be careful, it's still hot, you know, and he put the temperature gauge on it, you know, he had an infrared gun, And I actually had one too, so I was checking around to see what was going on, and it was disconnected. And I said, let's just let it finish doing its thing, whatever it's going to do. And they stayed while I unhooked it. I basically just took it out, and I ended up taking the battery out and put it outside, and it smoked for some more time. I don't know how much longer it smoked. And I just left it outside for weeks until I got a hold of you, I think.
Oh, and the pressure relief port.
Yeah, the pressure relief port had not popped, and they took some pictures. I talked to the fire department. They were curious about what it was, because they had actually been involved with batteries, but they've always been lead acid. And they even explained, even in their own, they must have equipment that's battery that they charge inside the fire station, and they've had this experience, but with lead acid cells. And it probably wasn't exactly the same, but so they were curious on the technology and things like that. So I don't know how far it's gotten into, because I did ask them. I said, "What would you normally do in this situation?" We were just discussing it, and they said, "Well, we would like to throw it in a lake or douse it with water." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know that would. I don't know what that would do."
Right. For lithium ion, that's what you
lithium
do. You
ion.
just hose it down with water.
And so there is a misconception between lithium ion and the lithium phosphate. It did not catch fire. I thought that I was going to have to replace 4 cells, and I was very, very upset. I was, there was also the, back in my head where maybe I did something. I did everything I could to try to figure out what I did. Did I have loose connections? I still, to this day, can't figure it out. But
right, and my thought was maybe one of the cells were overcharged somehow.
Yep.
Maybe the BMS wasn't reading correctly, but again, that's what my speculation was. We don't actually know.
Yeah.
No idea.
So I went through, and it took me a couple weeks, but I took all the cells back out, and did everything I could outside of the case, testing them, each one of them, testing them for their internal resistance, charging, discharging to see, checking their temperatures. And I was like, I'm going to put them back, all 15 of them. I kept track of which ones were right next to the cell, because I figured, that's why I thought 4, because there was a cell here, one here, one here, and one here. And I figured those 3 in that zone were ruined. But I've had no issues since.
So you're down to a 15S.
Yep, 15S. And I want a 16S, because that's what I had originally. And then I built this after that happened, but I bought 15 cells. And these are the 280 amp hour REPTs. And these ones are just some I got off Amazon from a seller. The dude was super polite. They're advertised as 280, and in the messaging he told me, I'll send you 302 cells. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was gonna buy 32 from him, but I had a bunch of money wrapped up in AliExpress, which is a whole nother deal. I never got the cells from the seller and stuff, but AliExpress did end up giving me my money back, but it took a long time. So anyway, I had some crazy experiences trying to just get involved in building these things. And the reason I wanted to get involved in it was because I had already purchased some, and I just saw the cost, and I saw the opportunity to be able to build, my own. But to have that happen was kind of crappy. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, I think that was after 3 months. They were in service for about 3 months when that happened.
Had it all built, put together, everything running for 3 months, and then just randomly it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, it was doing fine for 3 months. I will say this: I would check my BMS and stuff all the time, because I still do it today. I'll come in and just see how they're doing. Almost every time I get home from work, just how's everybody doing? Like the day before or that morning or something, I saw that there was a cell or 2 going whack. It was early in the morning. It was off balance by, I don't know, maybe something. I should have probably stopped it right then and there.
But it wasn't too concerning?
Now if I saw that, I would be like, oh, well, I'm going to unhook this battery and I'll look at it later.
Right.
But I just let it go. And I want to say it was that morning maybe that I saw that. Like when I was leaving for work, that there was some difference. And I couldn't recall which cell, but I remember seeing something like, that's weird. Like say one was at 3.1 and the rest were at 3.2 or something like that,
Right. But you have a BMS.
I do.
All correct settings.
Yes. And I mean, I test them, shut them down. I've done, I've tested the heat sensors with blow dryers. I will say this, my heat sensors are connected way better now than they were. Before, I just kind of had them
In there?
in there somewhere.
Okay.
And that specific cell, the heat sensor was nowhere near it.
But the box would have gotten hot.
So if I would have had it like tied, like taped to the box with metal tape or something, it would have probably shut down the BMS. I don't know that that would have done anything by that point. I mean, it's already cooking.
I'm guessing since you had the temperature sensors in the box, the whole box got obviously hot. Well, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that the BMS did disconnect, but again, it didn't really
it
do
might have.
anything because a cell was already nuclear at that point.
Yep. And I've tested the BMS for, high volt shutdown, low volt shutdown, because I have, I have the 302 16S with a,
Ant BMS?
Ant BMS, yeah. I want to say it's a 200 amp, and then same here, same exact BMS. I got them because they were low cost. They were like $80, and they have Bluetooth, and I can see everything on them and change their settings. And when I was first doing it, I was just seeing what I could build, like.
Ant BMS is a fairly good BMS, so I don't think there's anything wrong with the BMS.
Yeah, it seems to work. I've tested it by dipping them in ice, and I've done the high, like I said, the high volt shut off, low volt shut off. It does work. So as far as I know, I watched it shut off this morning because I was charging them back up, and I saw once the battery got to about 3.6 something, the BMS stopped going, and that's because that's why
So
I had
they
it
still
set
work
up.
after the
Yeah, the BMSs
incident.
work fine still, even after the incident. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything does, and that I will say that smoke didn't leave any kind of crazy residue. I remember a weird smell for a few days, but I did completely clean that box out. Like I ground it down, I repainted the inside. I basically redid it, did all fireproof paint and stuff like that because I didn't want to. You can see the box looks fine, So
And what I'm finding interesting is even your little screens right here.
Yep.
They're plastic. The actual letters and stuff on there, it all still works.
Everything
just
works,
fine.
and that was the same exact setup. Even the wires and cables. That's why the terminals didn't look. I mean, I saw in your video it looked a little bit, but like I didn't see anything crazy on those terminals.
Right. So your BMS wires, your power wires, etc. None of that stuff caught fire or melted or anything like that. It's just a random.
Just smoke like a mammoth smoke bomb for about a couple hours.
Huh.
I couldn't tell you the time. I didn't time it and stuff, but the part where it was the hottest was right here
On that outside wall.
on this outside. And so, one of the theories I have in my head is maybe it's from somehow metal touched on the case to the case of the battery, but I don't know what that would have done. I know that the outer shell of the case was a positive.
But the case is at a zero
My case is at
potential?
0. I don't have it grounded or bonded to anything because I don't. It's a floating system in my mind, and I'm sure there's arguments on code on what you should or shouldn't do there. But it's not an AC system, so I don't have it tied to my AC system. It's hard to say, and I'm sure if I checked, I don't know if I've done that. If I checked my case to ground, it might ring out, to my ground bar.
But you have since that time you've changed things and added a whole nother battery box. So
Well, this was actually here. This had 100 amp hour batteries in it at the time.
oh, okay.
So I guess that would be another thing because I thought about that. What I had was a 302 and a 100 amp hour because I was waiting for the 280s to get here. They're in parallel.
Yeah.
I personally don't see anything wrong with that. I still don't.
I've got it at my house.
Yeah,
Just fine.
they worked together great. Everything was fine. So it acted as like a 400 amp hour battery or whatever. But now I just upped it up to 280, and I moved my 100 amp hour over there for my other system. I have multiple systems on this house because I was learning about solar and learning about cells, and even though I've been doing this for almost 20 years, but still, there's still more to learn,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting. It's super interesting. So,
All right. So I want to thank you for sharing your experience with your horrible, disaster, which it wasn't too bad, but it was bad. Probably
yeah,
really,
it was-
really scary at the time, but in the end, it all kind of worked out.
yep. I reached out all over the internet to people, so you can probably find some of my posts somewhere on what are they called, blogs and stuff. Just if anybody else had experienced something like that, wasn't a lot of people out there that had. And so, part of
And
me,
this is why we want to share your story.
right. And yeah, I want to, learn about it, talk about it. If people have what they think, people theorize. A lot of people had theories. I'm starting to believe that it was a bad sell, and I was just unlucky and got a crummy
Just
sell.
a random bad sell.
Or something,
Which happens.
Something happened, yeah. Because, I check my torques and all that, that was where I went first. Like, oh, I must have done something. It had to be something I did.
Right.
But, the more it's gone on, I don't know. So anyway,
I was going to ask you if you can share your system with the viewers. Just maybe describe your system. Obviously, some things have changed since then. You've added different cells and some other random circuit breakers. You don't have to really include that if you don't want to, but maybe just share with us your system and maybe where you got some of the stuff.
Sure. What I had before was similar, but I have two battery banks in parallel. One of them's a 302 amp hour. One of them's a 280 amp hour. I got these from Alibaba from a link that you actually had on your.
Yeah. So I've got the exact same cells.
Yep.
Okay.
Those are the REPTs, 280 amp hour. These are 302. They're called Chemios. I got them from Amazon from a seller on there. I think I paid around $2,400. I probably paid $1,800 for these. This happened because I don't know if I was impatient, but I was waiting for my cells from AliExpress and they weren't coming. And I was already getting, I thought I was going to lose all my money from them anyway. And I wanted some. And these could be here in 3 days.
Right.
From like California or something, and they came. Because I wanted to get started. I wanted to start tinkering, learning how to do it. I have the Ant BMSs. They're Bluetooth.
Are those the 8S to whatever S or whatever?
Yeah, they're like 8S to 24S.
Okay.
So that was helpful because
Yeah.
when I lost my 16, I was able to just drop down to a 15.
Yeah.
But I also only bought 15 cells here, and I want this to be a 16S also. I know that the capacity is different with it being 15S. I can tell from the way it was before. Obviously the voltages are different. I have the screens that just connect Bluetooth. They're just little $15 things that I got. They're old Amazon Fire tablets.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, they work great for what I'm using them for. They're a little slow, but they do their job. Obviously I have a 12 kW grow watt SPF 1200T DVMPV. So it does 250 volts, worth of solar array. My solar array comes down. I have a few of them that feed just this. I have one on the roof, two on some pergolas outside, and they all go to a central location on the side of my house to some PV disconnects. Then come into my house. I have another PV disconnect here, just because I want to be able to
not go outside to do it again.
Not go outside to shut it off. And they're also current limiting too, so they're basically breakers. From there, the PV goes in, and that's the end of that.
What do you power with your system?
My entire house. Well, my entire house minus my dryer, my washer's on it, my furnaces are on it. The only things not on it are my dryer and my two outdoor air conditioners, the heat pumps. I had them on there, and it works, but just the batteries don't last. Cells won't last.
Is your stove or range on there?
My range is not on there, or my oven.
So everything pretty much 120 volt, but you do have a few 240 volt items on there.
Yes, I think some split units. So the other day, our power went out, and my wife didn't know. The whole neighborhood, I guess, was messaging, and the power was out for 6 hours, and this was just the last week, sometime this week, and she had no idea.
So your power stayed on.
It just stayed on the whole time.
Nice.
She wasn't using the stove. She wasn't using the dryer.
Didn't
and
notice.
It's spring, so we don't have the air conditioners on. Even if we did, the furnaces would probably still blow air.
Yeah.
So.
And everything's connected to what? Is that your main panel or is that a sub panel?
It's technically a main panel, but now it's a sub panel. I have two 200 amp panels. I have a 400 amp service.
Okay.
But I have this entire panel connected to this. This panel is on a grid-tied system.
Oh, okay.
So even though they are technically connected together, It's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
you know, you'd have to draw a diagram to explain this. I confused myself.
You got it connected to
it's connected
to
to this panel.
It's connected to that panel, powers your entire house, minus a few things.
That's right. That's right. Feeds my entire house. Comes through here. Goes to an ATS. I put that in there so that my wife, if there's issues, she can just come out and switch to grid just with her fingers. It's redundant, kind of, because you can do it here. But I also, it's like today, it's convenient. I can completely disconnect it from the grid. I can just go back to grid if I want to.
Okay.
Just do this automatic transfer switch. It's also automatic, so it can do its own thing if it detects anything. But like I said, that's kind of why it's redundant. Flip
But
switch.
you use that for like maintenance then?
It's for maintenance.
Kind of like we're going to do later today.
It's exactly what I use it
So
for.
instead of going through all your settings and stuff in here, you can just flip the little ATS right there and
it just
go
takes
back on grid.
Again, another grid disconnect. Basically, it passes through
You're
this
just
ATS.
testing that one though, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm just checking it out. It's Wi-Fi and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's smart or whatever. So it also, again, redundant because I got all kinds of ways to meter stuff.
So Alexa could shut off your house without you knowing.
Yeah, I could do it right now.
I'm just
no,
kidding.
well, I mean,
just kidding.
If I told her to, I've been using Alexa and stuff for about 5 or 6 years. She's pretty reliable.
Okay.
I could tell it to do whatever. You know, I could
Gotcha.
program it to do this, do that. What I would like to use it for is if for some reason this thing ain't kicking on, every once in a while I've had that, I can, from my phone, turn the grid off and force the battery, because it'll automatically start up.
Right.
Because it's lost the grid. So basically this is the grid feed into here. So it's got a breaker here, ATS here, breaker back there. And it works great. I think I can say, Alexa, inverter breaker off.
Nice. It's kind of creepy at the same time.
Yeah.
Can't you turn it back on?
Yeah. Alexa, inverter breaker on.
Nice. All right. So anyway, yeah, I guess that's your system
That's
in a
pretty much
nutshell.
the system, yeah. And
I do see you got a fuse here on the side.
Oh,
right
yeah.
over there. You probably got a fuse in there as well. Oh, it's on
Fuse
the
on
other side.
Oh,
Okay.
I do have extra sensors. Okay, so
Now-
I have the BMS sensors, yeah.
Right.
I also now have an alarm here, so it would alert my wife if it reaches a certain temperature. I think I have it set to 130 degrees or 140 degrees, I can't remember. And it also would alert my phone, just so that I hopefully would have a little bit of,
And this is an addition, or this is something that you added. You don't have to open that yet.
yeah.
This is something that you have added since the smoke cell.
Yes, they're also Wi-Fi. They're basically, I think, something you would keep in your home to check for humidity.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
And I just have them sitting in the box.
Gotcha.
They have a screen on them too, but they're in the box, and so it's just an extra thing for me. You know, I can check the temperature of my battery case anytime I want to from my phone, and as long as I can see that it's, you know, around normal ambient temperature in there. And I have a thermostat in my garage, so I know about how hot or cold my garage is. But it will alert me at a certain temperature, like if it reaches 100 degrees,
Right.
then it'll tell me, and I probably won't panic because 100 degrees ain't too bad.
Nope.
If it gets to 120, I might be like, hey,
What's going on?
let's go look at these things and see what's going on. 140, I'm probably going to shut her down.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But that's what I have. I don't have any fire suppression in there. I've thought about that, but gosh, I would have hated to clean up that mess too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right, so here's another question that I have. Since you have had that whole debacle, are you still comfortable with this whole system? Are you still comfortable with the batteries?
oh yeah, if anything, it proved to me that they are safer than they're safe. And you know, I had that conversation with my wife and the fire department that day. I says, if anything, it proves that these cells do what they say they're going to do.
Right,
You know, where we say what everybody talks about.
right.
They did not catch on fire.
That's
It
good.
did not burst into flames. It did make a mess, and it did make a lot of smoke, and it was a little unnerving. But I mean, look, I didn't repair any of it.
Have you painted anything on the walls?
No.
No.
I don't
So there's
think
no smoke damage or anything.
There's a little
in
bit of
here.
something down there. I never did clean that up. See that dribble? Well, you probably can't with the camera, but you can get it down there. That is something. That's lithium or paint or
Oh, okay.
that's something. I just never got down there.
Okay.
So there was that kind of stuff.
I'll get that in camera for you.
Yep. So that is evidence. That is leftover residue. See, I don't go down that low.
Right.
So, yeah, there was that kind of thing. But for the most part, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was probably, scary to my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, for me, it was more of a pride thing.
Right.
What happened?
Right.
Like it was more of a. But then it was kind of, well, it did what it was, except for venting out of the top.
Right.
It didn't burst into flames. So, had it, then these wouldn't be in here anymore. That's for sure. So I don't know what I would do. I'd probably have to build a barn outside or something because I probably wouldn't give up.
Right.
What else do we want to do?
I think that's it. I just want to thanks for your time and thanks for sharing your story.
No problem.
And I'm sure we'll have some other videos here coming up shortly. Boom, there you go. I don't want to keep you any longer than I have to. Just wanted to give Jimmy a big shout out for letting me come out there, asking a whole bunch of random questions about his experience and his story, and letting me share it with you guys. Obviously, lithium iron phosphate is safe, even though this one kind of burst out the bottom. It should burst out the top, but obviously they don't catch fire, but most of you already know that. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'd love to see those down in the comment section. Don't forget to like that smash button, and I will see you on the next one, which we're gonna be doing some more tests out there. So that'll be for a whole nother video. All right, we'll see you guys later. Hello.
Hello. Okay.
Hi.